Well, first of all, like, how have you been? What have you been doing?
I just came back from Istanbul actually. I was just spending time with my grandfather. So I'm like kind of like having a sort of half out of body experience, like trying to get used to being on the Western Hemisphere or whatever. But
Right. Yeah.
outside of that, doing pretty good, getting back to work on Monday. Yeah. What about
Cool.
you? How you been?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. I can always find something to complain about, but I won't. Well,
Complain away,
let's
honestly.
yeah, let's get into it. Okay,
Alberta's is
so
on fire.
yeah. Okay, so like I remember when we met, we had an interesting conversation about like attachment types, right? Because you came to Enneagram. Or actually, you know what? Why don't we start? Tell us how you like found the Enneagram, like what and like what it like a bit. I mean, you don't have to answer this like question if you don't want, but like if you maybe that'll kind of segue into like getting your typing back and like how that felt, and that might get into some of the attachment stuff.
Yeah, so I think it was mentioned on a random YouTube video I was watching. It was like some vlogger. And then I looked into it and I saw the podcast by Ian Crone or whatever. I think that's his name.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went through that and I was like, "Doc," I kind of saw that there's something there, but I wasn't getting the full thing. So I got all the Enneagram books. I became very, very obsessed actually.
You did
And
consume.
then it still wasn't really making sense to me. Then I got into Naranjo, which and that was my first introduction to the instincts.
Hmm.
And again, I still wasn't really getting. And then finally, I got into Beatrice Chestnut, and then that's when I got my first like tentative type. And I was like, oh, I think I'm a self-press four, which is like the sunny four or whatever.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
I always was very stuck between nine, four, and like six because I think I saw the frustration piece of like I
Right.
do really I'm very negative and I think I'm better than people like which is something that people probably won't. I mean, I don't actually think I'm better than people, but I often like judge people's tastes and shit like that.
Right.
Like what they settle for, which is frustration, right?
Yeah.
And then but then I just threw the whole thing away because I'm like, I don't think I'm actually this at all.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
the only reason I believe it is because I've been able to type other people in my life correctly, like my best friend's of five, and I was like, fuck, like this is exactly who
Yeah.
she's like. There's nothing
Yeah.
else. So years passed by, and then I found your guys' group, and then I
Right.
submitted my typing, and I got seven, so it made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys are the ones that introduced us to OPS, which I guess we could talk about later, which is really cool. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, actually, I kind of had a similar journey, except the opposite. Like, I thought I was a seven when I first started looking. I didn't
yeah.
find Ian Crone, but I did Beatrice Chestnut. I did like whatever. Yeah, I bought like every. I did the whole consume thing. I bought like every single book and like spent hours just like writing notes and comparing. And it was really frustrating that they were all. I could see that there was something here, but it was like frustrating because I'm like they're all different, and I need like I want.
Did you ever go to a workshop? Because I think that's what broke me. I went
Yeah, I
to a
went to a
workshop.
Beatrice Chestnut. I was on a panel of fours.
I
Yeah.
went to a workshop in my city and the most vanilla ass human beings. Like
Yeah.
there was like six fours.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
I think this is crap actually. And I think that's when I took like I went into a depression state. I think I was thinking about going to the big conference. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm going crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
So you stop. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what killed me. I was like, there can't be like not everyone in this fucking church basement is a four.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I was sitting on the panel and like honestly, I didn't even, at the time I think based on her sorry, subtypes, I was typing as sexual four just cuz that one is written as the most reactive and so it
And it seems like
just
the most four-ish actually, because it's
four-ish.
the
Yeah.
self-destructive thing is in those the sexual four.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I don't have a nine fix, so it just thought the whole thing just felt a little more right. But yeah, I was on a panel with there was one. If I can, it was like I mean it was years ago, but I'm pretty sure it was like a couple of nines,
Mhm.
and one six maybe. But
Mhm.
yeah, it was just like I mean they were sitting there just being like, yeah, you know what, like I just sometimes I have some really dark moods, but you just got to pick yourself up and you just got to, get a donut and go walking down this. And I was like, what the hell are we doing? I'm not even saying, I'm not even like, that I'm not even like, I've talked about this a lot. Four isn't really like dark, as everybody
Yeah.
plants all this stuff onto four. It's not that dark, but the whole thing just felt very anti-image to me. It was disgusting. So it was like, I was
Yeah.
like, there's something off here. But I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just subtypes. But anyway, yeah, I eventually like got off of seven. It was the same thing because I related to the frustration piece of seven. I was like, oh yeah, and social sexual is also very seven-ish, right? So I was like, I'm
Yeah.
that might be what I am. But anyway, um yeah, so then yeah, I'm really glad that you got to us. And so you're social sexual, seven wing six, secondary nine, wing
Yes, and
one.
the tri-types, when I first like heard of the tri-types when I was doing my big deep dive, I also thought that was complete bullshit. I'm like, my God, people are so self-obsessed. Like they need three different things. But when I got typed by you guys and I saw your how you I could actually the reason I thought you guys were legit, it was the same thing with OPS because I was into MBTI for a long time and I was like, I
Same,
can't
yeah.
really figure anything this out. But when I saw your guys' database and like the people you typed, I'm like, I actually see some sort
Right.
of pattern. Like I feel like I could
Yeah.
recreate this. So when I got a nine secondary, I don't know if it comes off in this interview or whatever when we met in Toronto, but if it was like the missing piece because I'm like, dude, I am very nine, but I always do. I'm not a nine because I am quite negative and stuff, but I do
Right.
feel like I have a lot of the traits of like when I am stressed out, I do kind of like bleed into the background or like dissociate or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
I
right.
felt that.
Yeah, and that piece of um I think one of the things I like that we've been doing with Trifix is really talking about like STEM. So it's like, okay, so your DJ, that's a whole theme, but it's also like the seven, like there's a difference between 739 and 793. We talked about this a little bit too. Like
Yeah.
7-9 is like magical thinking, fantasy, and that could be magical negative. I mean, it's often positive thinking, but in a way, it's like you could be positive thinking and then tidal waves of extreme badness, and then you're
Yeah.
back to being in the clouds, and it's just like this sort of um, spatial anything goes
Yeah.
type of
Seven
thing.
nine is like basically hippie burnout kind of a little bit. And then 7-3 is very, I don't know, cringy TED talk. They're both cringy in their different ways, but is a huge
Yeah,
different kind of flavor,
yeah,
honestly.
very true. But yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about also like what it's like to be like a hexad type in an attachment world. And we're both, I mean, you're like attachment adjacent because you got six wing and the 9-3, and I have a secondary attachment type. So we both have pretty strong attachment influences, right?
Mhm.
But there is, because just most people, it's not like, and I don't want to present this narrative that like when you're a hexad type, you just know you're different. It's not like this sort of special
Yeah, it's not
thing.
bad.
It is more just almost like practical and weird, or like almost like being social blind or something, where you just realize that
Yeah.
like there are so many situations in life where I have been too much or not correct for the situation, even as
Being
a
a little bit
social
like
dom.
socially out of step, like socially
Yes.
awkward and not really realizing it. Or like one thing, because I do have two attachment,
Hmm.
in my type, but one thing I think about often is like the my relationship to basicness or whatever, and I never understood why anyone would feel bad by being called basic or whatever. So it's kind of the opposite because I'm a seven. I'm supposed to be this incredibly interesting person, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I am kind of basic. I like this shit, whatever. Why does anyone care about this? And I think that's the Hexad part. I'm like, why would anyone fucking care if somebody called them basic or normal or
That's
whatever?
You're
It's
right.
like you like
Yeah.
what the fuck you like, and I think that the attachment bit is like the anxiety about who they are constantly and then constantly having to be in conversation with the culture, which is something that I don't even feel too capable of. I don't think I'll ever win that game. It's not like I'm better than I'm like I don't understand and I don't think I'll ever win,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's how I view it.
Yeah, it's very true. Like sevens actually I find are just kind of like it's partially, it's not I'm basic or I'm interesting, it's I'm whatever the hell I am, like whatever it is. I'm not like trying to judge it or trying to change it. And you're also like heart last, so that's another bit of like not trying to force or craft like an image in a certain place. It's just like whatever, this is what it is. I mean, for me, I think it's just been so many situations where I realize that I'm not adapting in a way that like everybody else is adapting. Like even like it's not to say that like attachment types is especially if they have like, I don't know, like 613s. There's a lot of that type. They're like really intense and really, they can be really bossy and like self-assured. It's not that they're like so adaptable that they're just nothing.
Mhm.
But still, there's just this way that like, I don't know, at like in my other jobs and stuff where I'm just like, this is a situation where I was really just supposed to go with the flow of what was happening. I'm trying to think of a good example, but I can't right now because like,
Yeah,
oh shit.
I get you. I see a lot with family gatherings, just like the fact that I came back from my
Right.
grandpa, and I'm just like, there's so much things that are unspoken, and there's so much anxiety in the air when it comes to like social norms or how is that person feeling, how's that other person feeling, and it does take me a beat to care about that type of stuff, and I guess because I do have those two attachment, in types of my fixes, I don't I feel kind of anxious about it sometimes, but it's really, really hard for me to remember to do it. That
Yeah,
makes
or
I like
care, or
I
yeah.
work on the back end when I've already fucked everything up, you know?
Yeah. It's even like the amount of time. So I don't know if you've seen other Princess Court. My friend Elisa, who's 378, and she's social blind. So this isn't somebody who's like this is a really hexad um attachment type. But still, like she'll still say stuff about how when she was younger she would like find herself, and she's not even nine fixed, in like situations that she didn't want to be in and realize later or as she's there, and I'm like, that has never happened to me. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand like what. And that's another part. It's not just hexad, but it's like frustration hexad. Like so that's why
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up, because it's just kind of like, I don't know, like somebody be like, do you want to do something? No.
Yeah, same.
I don't,
Or
what are
I'll
we,
or
what's,
I'll
there's nothing
go
left.
I'll
Yeah.
go and I'll, like, kind of ruin everyone's plans without realizing it,
Yes, I
because I'll
love
force
ruining.
the thing, and this is something I actually became conscious of after I got type, but I'm like, I do, because I think my self-view is, like, very nine-ish, or like, "Oh, I do definitely go with the flow too
Right.
much," whatever, but then when I look at myself in situations, I actually, like, get called out a lot for just, like, "Why can't you just do the thing like we asked you to?"
Yes,
Or, "Why can't,"
exactly. Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
fuck things up a lot because if it's boring, I do feel like I'm gonna die. I do feel like I have
Death.
to. I wasn't born in this world to fucking suffer. Like, I'm gonna have a good time, whether you like it or not. And I'm very conscious about my enjoyment
Yes, same.
of circumstances, of things, or anything. If I'm gonna go somewhere, you have to let me know that I'm gonna have a good time,
Yeah.
um, or I will leave.
Yeah.
That's real. Yeah.
Yeah, same. And I get like controlling. About like if I want something or I want to do something or don't want to do something, it's like I don't know how to put this. I don't want people to bend to me. I just want them to be on the same page as me and
I
actually
want you to be
want the
excited. Yeah.
same, you know what I'm yeah, like I want, if I'm like, "Hey, do you want to go whatever, whatever the fuck, like let's just do you want to go take a walk right now?" I don't want a person to say yes. If they don't want to go.
Yeah.
But then if they say no, I'm also annoyed because it's like, but I want to, like,
That's
I want to
frustration.
do this. This is the thing I've decided I want to do. So what I want is for them to really want to go, but that's not
Mhm.
always possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want you to adapt to me, because that it does make me feel bad when people adapt to me, because
Yeah. Cause you're like, well, you're
I'm
lying.
really bad at actually picking that up, number one.
Yeah.
Like, and number two, I don't feel like I'll be able to repay them, and I don't want it to be like a
Yes.
thing
Very
where
true.
I'm
That's a
fucking you
really good
over.
point. That's a really good point. When somebody adapts to me, I feel this guilt. That's actually like really a huge thing that I just realized as you said it, because it's like, why do I get so mad when I find that somebody's adapted to me? Because it's like, I think there's this trope, like if you see in like movies and sitcoms or whatever, where like somebody wants to date somebody and they like pretend to be somebody else just so the person likes them, whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
or like, there's this, oh, you did this thing for me even though you really didn't want to. You pretend. It's seen as a nice thing, whereas I'm like mad, like I get angry, and it's because
It's
it's a
kind of
couple things.
insulting, because it's like it's also like, you don't know me. Like, how do you think you know me that well? Like, maybe I would have. You have no idea how like, and you have no idea how I would react. Number one, and number two, it's like, I feel like I'm pretty open as a human being, and I can see something interesting in whatever you give me. If you give me something reactive, if you give me something frustration, I feel like I'm more well equipped to deal with that than somebody who's an attachment type. So maybe that's where the like our frames of reference is just like completely fucked up. Because I'd rather somebody like for one, like I like when people are confrontational and say what they want or like word vomit or whatever, and like create a scene. I'd rather that than somebody like quietly try to think of my needs and wants and whatever. Because it's
Right,
like
because you're not going to do it
you're really
right.
dealing with who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, I know what you're exactly. It's like, first of all, you're not getting it right. It's
Hmm.
number one. And number two, like exactly what you said. I know that I'm simply not like, when somebody does something for you, it's just like human. You're just like, well, I sort of feel like I have to do it back. If it's like somebody that you care
Hmm.
about or somebody you love, you're like, oh, well, you've been doing this. I'm not going to be able to do that for you. So now you feel this guilt. And it's like, I know I'm not going to be able to adapt. I'm not, even if, like, okay, like, even if it's
Because
like,
they'll
okay,
criticize you for adapting. They'll
well,
criticize you for not adapting well enough because you'll leak frustration out there, and they're like,
exactly.
"Okay,
Yeah,
well, you didn't
exactly.
want to."
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Because when you're like, okay, fine, I'm gonna I'm gonna do this thing that I don't want to do for you because that's what you did for me. But we're not able. Like, I'm not. They know instantly. Whoever it is knows that you're
Yeah,
not happy, and then they're mad because they're just like,
all
well,
over
okay,
your
fine. Like,
face.
if you don't want to, and it's like, okay, but what do you want me to do? Like, I don't know how to pretend that I want to do something the way you do. I'm not, it's
Yeah,
not even possible. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to say, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because you want to. And that's how this is going to go. There's no other way for that to go.
this conversation is actually triggering me. It's like so many memories and also my emotions,
Yeah.
but because it also hits at my core beliefs and like philosophy. Because I'm like, I don't think that we're like I don't want to suffer, and I don't think you should suffer, and I don't like why do we have to like if you're my friend, for example, because I've had this exact kind of whatever dynamic with a few friends, and I'm like, if you're my fucking friend, I don't want you to suffer in my presence, and I don't
Exactly.
want to be a person who
Yeah.
makes you suffer.
Because I'm not.
In fact, if I'm a person who's causing you a lot of suffering and you can't confront me about it, and if you do confront me about it and I'm not able to change, I would actually rather you walk out of my life than to continue to suffer. So now, why are you like? It feels like manipulation when somebody brings up attachment stuff, and I think the Enneagram has
It
actually
can
helped
be.
me
Yeah.
because it's just like because it feels like okay, like I can't do anything right. Like I can't just be like my asshole constantly has to be tightened around you, kind of, and I constantly be at your. I have to think about my needs and also your needs, and because I'm a seven or whatever, selfish, I don't
Right.
know. It's incredibly hard for me.
No, but it's also,
As
no,
well.
I agree with you. It's exhausting because you just like, at a certain, I mean, I think what we don't realize is that, like, if everybody were Hexad type, like, nothing would happen, because you do really just need
Yeah,
people who are like, okay, yeah, like, I don't,
yeah,
or I don't want to do that, or I'm not even sure what I want, so I'll just do the thing. Like, I think that's what it is. I've dated a lot of nines, and some really good ones and some really bad ones, right? And the the good side of it is, it's just like, this person really doesn't want to do something, they're just not going to do it, or they'll tell me. But most of the time, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, fine. Like, I have a
yeah,
preference for everything all the time, and this person doesn't. So it works because it's like, well, okay, I'm going to decide, and then you're just going to be okay with it most of the time. The bad side
yeah,
is, and I've been triggered, like, with my current partner, who doesn't do this, but past partners have done this, where I'm like, do not tell me, like, don't be with me and then decide that you like, you just realize that you don't even like me later, or you don't do this
yeah,
thing and then tell me later
yeah.
that you didn't want to the whole time, or don't tell me that, like, you like my new hair. Well, I don't have hair anymore, but like, you like it, but then this whole time you didn't like that makes me feel embarrassed and ashamed, because I don't know
Yes,
how to
yeah,
read your mind if you're adapting so much. And
yes.
they adapt out of love too. It's
Because
just like,
your
if I
ass
love
is all
you.
the way out. Yeah, because
Exactly.
you're constantly showing like what you want, where you're at, da da da, and it's like you constantly have all my cards are on the table. I
Which
feel
to me
so
is
vulnerable.
love, right?
Yeah,
Like,
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
But for them, it's love. So I mean, it's, again, it's a give and take, because like, there are good and bad versions of both of these strategies, and like, yeah, I do really well dating like Bermudas, but it's just kind of like, it has to be somebody who is like, feels safe having a conversation with you, and like, and also I have to understand too with Bermudas that, like, if I'm like, what are you feeling right now, what do you want right now, they actually just don't even know sometimes, and it like takes time and like space for them, and I just have to be like, okay, they're, this is how
yeah,
they're gonna be, I'm gonna give them the space, or I'm just not gonna have an answer right now, or whatever.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I want to touch on the that little part where you talked about how it makes you feel embarrassed, and I think that's perfect when it comes to Bermuda or attachment because a lot of times like it can be simplified as like, oh, these people are just like constant people pleasers, and they don't really have an identity of their own. And that's not how it feels from my side, because I do feel that embarrassed thing a lot
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to attachment stuff. And it's almost as if people are speaking at, like, I love the social connection, because it does feel like people are speaking in a language that I don't really understand. I'm not fluent in, and I will never be really fluent in. So yeah, the embarrassment feeling is like
Yeah.
big, and I don't think people talk about that enough when they talk about Hexad and attachment.
Yeah, it's true. And maybe it's a thing for us because of social too, where it's like because
Mhm.
you now realize that you have the thing about social is not about adapting to social, but what you want with social is to be in control of your own presentation and the interaction in whatever way you
Yeah,
want. Like if I'm just like I want to cause a scene, I want to be a bitch, I want to do whatever, then you want to just know what you're doing. But if somebody
yeah,
hits you with, you got this whole thing wrong, you're just like, oh shit, now I feel
yes.
really ashamed because I didn't get this right. I thought I had this social situation under control in whatever way I wanted, and I didn't.
Mhm. And they point out things that I never even really saw. You know what I mean? And that makes me feel like that definitely hits at the frustration part, like of seven, of just like, oh, like I feel so fucking hopeless. Actually, I don't think I'll like ever get it right. And then I guess social as well, just being social first, of like, oh, I'm like not like a, I don't know, like full grown adult or human being or whatever. I think that's also the social sexual bit, because it's like constantly spilling and constantly giving too much away and being a little bit too chaotic. But like in my mind, I'm like, I think I can be this way. I can be myself and like make it in the world. And then when I hit those embarrassing moments, I definitely do feel like going into a pit and like, okay, like I'm not cut out for society. I know it's very,
Yeah.
it's very like dramatic, but that's how it feels. Sometimes I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
get it, you know?
Yeah. And that's like the secondary, like 911, I think, for you kind of clicking
Yeah.
in and being like, okay, I got to go away or I have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually that's a good segue into like I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about social sexual because I think like Enneagrammer in our earlier days we were like overtyping social sexual, like, but even before you we don't anymore, and we realized that it's really not anything with sexual is very uncommon, which is like probably a good thing for this world.
Mhm.
But social sexual isn't the most uncommon. Actually, I don't know. You know what's interesting? So we get like lots of typings, and I'm just like, well, we get lots of like, so in the world, there's definitely more self-pres social people, but in typology, there's a huge amount of social self-pres, which makes sense
That
because
makes
this is
sense.
sort of yeah. But we still rarely see social sexual. Like you're one of now the only social sexual people that I know. It's really not that
Wow.
common. Yeah, like I have a bunch of social blind friends, but you think I'd have all this stuff. And I think maybe part of it is just like there are maybe a lot of social sexuals that are doing things like extroverted things that I'm not going to be able to connect with or something like that. Like, I don't know, that kind of thing. So that's maybe part of it. But
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's just weird because I'm like, where are they? But
Yeah.
yeah, one of the things that we were saying about why does this thing keep shaking? I think I keep knocking the table. Part of my conception of social sexual, which isn't even something that I like, that's like self-serving, but like I call it the teenager because I
Yeah.
think social self-pres is the adult, and social they
Yeah.
relate to life stages, right? Because they're social roles, so to speak. But yeah,
Mhm.
social sexual is the teenager because it really does have this vibe, and I felt this even like, well, I'm feeling it now, and I felt it when we like actually met in person. It's like, okay, where's my best friend? Or is it you? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's go. Okay, so like, tell me all your secrets. Call me every 5 minutes. Let's talk about boys. Let's talk about like, you know what I mean? It's just like an instant
Yeah.
pajama party, kind of like giggly. So whatever type you are, that has this sort of vulnerable teenager overlay on it, in comparison to social self-pres, which is like as a young people, they're like thinking about the world and social issues and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff in such a grand way in comparison.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense. The way I think about it, I think I said this when I first joined Enneagrammer, but the instant hit I got was like social self-pres is the son or daughter that the parents like really love and respect or whatever. Like, this is the one that's gonna take us out the hood or whatever.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
right, yeah.
this is the only child. And then the
Yeah.
social sexual one is like just like it's like the fuck up that everyone loves
Yeah,
that
it's
want like
seven-ish, right?
what
Yeah.
we'd have more people at our funeral. Maybe I'm just kidding, but more cheers at
Yeah.
least. Um,
Well, more close. I
but
think we'd have less people, but we'd actually like know them.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
so true. I was just thinking about this the other day because I'm like, how am I like with the OPS type and with seven and then social type? I'm like, I really only have like two friends at a
Yeah,
time.
same.
I
Yeah.
can't do more than that. And then I go like large periods of time where I'm like, I can't even have any friends. I have like one friend that I check up on in every like once a month because I'm going through something. Like,
Right.
and it's not even I'm not even going through something like on Earth. It's something inside. A volcano is coming. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah, I find
Oh,
the thing with social self-pres that for me is there's it's that contra distance where um it's hard to explain. It's like I am
you can never get close enough to them.
no, or at least
Um,
it feels like that. It feels like the kind of
yeah,
closeness I'm looking for is instant and raw and giddy and
and
excited
you
and
you feel like a wrong like it's not that I like that you corrected me about the closeness because it's actually not true. You can get very close to them because of the social, but if you feel bad about yourself maybe or like a little bit more like a destructive force in someone's life because I always kind of feel like I'm like kind of fucking your life up or like i'm I'm a fuck up near you or something like that, and i I don't feel that when I'm talking to social sexual people. I haven't met a lot of people. I've met you and I've talked to a few people in the
Mhm.
Enneagram community, and I definitely feel like more free to be myself in terms of just like being extremely messy, like sending like 6 paragraphs and like I'll send you a
Right.
voice note and we'll talk for 4 hours and then maybe I'll disappear for like 1,000 years and then we can reconnect easily. I feel like
Right.
more able to do that without feeling shame. So I definitely see the teenager, comparison. And I personally I feel immature, so it
Yeah,
also makes sense.
and what's interesting with mine because I don't feel immature in the sense, but I'm 461, so this is a lot of counteracting that energy. But in comparison, we don't have a lot of 461s, but just even 6-1 in general, if you compare, it's just like I'm a lot less on the ball or whatever. But maybe the part I'm wondering because the thing you're talking about, like, oh, I'm fucking up their lives. I don't know if this is what you mean or if it's like not the same thing, but one of the things I feel was with just sexual blind in general, or like, but especially maybe it's even worse with self-pres social, but this sense of like I'm derailing your like work process or something. Like everything I do is like it's not that I don't work. I mean, we're working right now, but I
Yeah.
like to I don't know, like do what I want and go with the flow and have a good time and like make things interesting and bring up a joke and like just like fuck something up because it's like more
Yeah.
fun if you're just like let's change okay we have this, let's change it, let's rip it apart, let's just and so what I'm doing is derailing this kind of like wheel that's
Monotony.
just been spinning and working and everybody else is like doing it and I come in and I'm like I just want to like throw things off the table and be like ha, like you know what I mean, like just
Yes,
fucking
I want to
fuck something
destroy
up.
formality.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely see that, and it's like, I think it's because having sexual second, you're constantly. I think I'm constantly kind of afraid and like looking at the way that my life could go stale, and like as soon as it does
Yes.
start getting stale, like I'll either consciously, try to work on myself, do something different to like have some kind of alchemical experience inside myself, or
Yes.
like I know I will start destroying things outside of myself, which is
Yes.
like bad. So I think people see that quality in us, and then we also try to do it to them without really noticing.
Yes.
Like I
Yeah.
know, because I'm just like I personally can't hear people because this is something I see in sexual blinds a lot. It's like hearing them complain about the same issue over and over and over again, which every human being does. But but their excuse is kind of like, well, I need to just do this for stability reasons. And I'm like, but you're like slowly dying, like
Just
life
don't. Yeah.
ends.
Just what if you
Like
just didn't? Just
you
don't.
you need
Yeah.
to change it,
You're
destroy
dying
it. Like
anyway. Yeah.
it might actually get worse. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
But you'll have the story and you won't feel dead inside. You'll actually feel like extreme pain, but that's better.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. And that thing about like your life just like when it gets stale.
mhm.
What's interesting because yeah, there's a sexual blind thing where they might have those tidal waves, so to speak, of like, oh, realizing that something needs to change or something needs to be torn apart. But it's a really psychologically messy thing to happen because they're like, but all I do is build and build and build. Why would I break the whole thing down? Whereas I'm literally
Yeah.
just like, I built a castle, like a sand castle. I'm gonna step on it. Like 2 seconds later, I'm stepping on it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what can I? And I've learned as I've gotten older to try to mitigate this impulse. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to destroy something, it's going to be something really small that doesn't have a huge effect. Like I'm going to get a new phone, or like, I don't know, just something that's like whatever. Like I need to destroy something, but it has to be small because I can't just, like, I've moved so many times and there's always a reason. But
Mhm.
psychologically, I know that a part of me is like, okay, let's go, let's do it. Let's just. I think it's stressful,
Yeah.
but we're doing it. We gotta go. You know what I mean? Like it's just like I have to find something to like rumble, like start. Like I
Yes.
need an earthquake, or everything just gets really stale and
Disruptor.
boring.
You need a
Yeah,
disruptor for the situation in real
exactly.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.